Hi, I'm James Garbutt. I'm here with Denny Dumas, and today we're doing a video about closing costs for buyers purchasing real estate in British Columbia. And the assumption here is that we're talking specifically to Canadian permanent residents because there are different rules for foreigners. So I will begin with the main items. One, hiring a realtor. Now, for the sake of this video, we're going to assume that's free because realtors are typically compensated through the listing agent or the developer, and there is no cost to a buyer for a realtor in most circumstances. However, there can be exceptions, but assume it's free for this purpose. The biggest closing cost that we typically run into is property transfer tax. Now, it's a bit of a confusing formula, but I'll try to do my best to break it down. So, property transfer tax, for those that are not exempt, is a tax that you pay whenever you're buying real estate in BC, and with some exemptions. It amounts to 1% on the first $200,000 of a purchase and 2% from $200,000 to $2 million. That's what most people have to concern themselves about. However, it does get more complicated for luxury properties. So for $2 million to $3 million, it is 3%. For $3 million or above, it is 5%. So just for simplicity's sake, a typical $500,000 condo, property transfer tax would be $8,000. And for $1 million home, the property transfer tax would be $18,000 for those that are not exempt. Now, quick, putting you on the spot here, Denny.
I'm really good at math.
Luxury gets a little complicated and the number gets big. What would be the property transfer tax on $4,850,000?
$160,500.
There you go. We did not pre-plan that at all. Fun fact about property transfer tax, it was introduced in 1987, and at the time it was introduced, it was a luxury tax. Most homes in Vancouver were valued around, like the average home was about $150,000 at the time, and it was a luxury tax because homes over $200,000 were taxed at a higher rate, if you wanted to know. Anyway, Denny, let's go on to the other closing costs.
Yeah, so at completion, there's going to be a couple other expenses that you need to worry about. The bigger one is going to be your legal expenses. You're hiring a lawyer or notary to transfer title into your name, and that can range anywhere from $900 to about $1,300 or $1,400. If you're buying strata, if you're moving into a condo or a townhouse, there likely will be a strata move-in fee. I've seen them as low as $100 and I've seen them as high as $300. So just be prepared that that is going to be on your statement of adjustments as well. Also on your statement of adjustments will be prorated monthly, yearly expenses that you're taking over from the seller. Property tax, your monthly strata fee, and utilities. So this is all that you're paying at the completion of when you're moving or getting keys to the property. At the due diligence phase, there are a couple other expenses that are worth noting as well. One would be your home inspection, and depending on the size of your home, whether it's a condo or a house, that's going to be in the range of about $400 to $800 or $900. If you're buying an older home and the sellers have not done an oil tank scan, you may elect to do one just for your peace of mind. A typical oil tank scan is about $100, but if you get a more in-depth ground penetrating radar scan, those are going to be about $400 to $500. With new construction, there are a few other details that are worth talking about. Just as of about a year ago, property transfer tax on any new construction up to $750K is exempt for anyone. It doesn't matter if you're a first-time buyer or you've bought multiple properties before. The other expense that you're going to be paying on new construction is GST. The rebate range is quite low, but if you are buying new construction under $350,000 as a first-time buyer, you can get a rebate up to 1.8% of that GST back. The normal GST on a new construction is 5%, and that rebate is for first-time buyers up to $350K, and it goes on a bit of a sliding scale up to $450,000. A couple other things worth noting that I'll let James chat with you about.
Just one thing about that GST thing. So just when Denny's mentioning under $350,000, well, first of all, good luck finding a place for that in Vancouver. But if you do find a place for under $350,000, you're paying 3.2% GST instead of 5% GST. So you're getting 1.8 off. So you're paying net 3.2. So if you're buying a place for $300,000, it's about 10K. Anyway, you've covered due diligence. I'm going to go into one other thing. First-time buyers. on property transfer tax are exempt up to $500,000. So if you're a first-time buyer and you're buying a $499,000 place, you are really only concerning yourself with legal fees, if there's a move-in fee, inspection costs, but you're not worrying about the big lump of property transfer tax. Some other out-of-pocket costs that I wouldn't necessarily consider closing costs, but cost to consider when you're about to close on a property is if the home requires insurance. You know, for detached homes, often lenders require insurance, so that would be an out-of-pocket cost. Could be $1,000, could be $4,000. Depends on the home. For strata properties, you're typically just talking about content insurance. The properties are covered in the strata fee. For another item would be lending fees. If you're not getting, if you're doing bridge financing or using private loans, they can come with lending fees. So just that's a question to ask your lender. And the last one would be moving expenses. Not everyone hires a mover, but if you do, there can be expenses there. And depending on the property, I mean, you could be talking anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 plus, depending on the scope of work. So moving expenses would fall in that range as well. I think that pretty much covers everything, but just to kind of simplify it a little bit, not a first-time buyer. For a $500,000 property purchase, you're looking at about $8,000 in property transfer tax in between inspections, legal fees, potential move-in fees. There's probably another $2,000 there. So you're about $10,000, and that's not including moving and insurance. So, you know, if you're buying something for $500,000, plan for at least $10,000 in additional expenses. If you're buying something for $1 million, plan for at least $20,000 in additional expenses. And I hope you have some clarity behind these items that we're listing off. Anyway, anything else you want to add?
I think that is it for today.
That is all. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you for watching.